It's January 24th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the impeachment trial of President Yoon over his short-lived martial law declaration. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun downplayed allegations implicating Yoon's martial law order as he showed up as a witness for the president for Thursday's hearing. In the meantime, investigators passed a martial law investigation to the prosecution for indictment. South Korea and the U.S. will remain on the same page for North Korea's denuclearization. Seoul's top envoy to the U.S. vowed to make sure of this on Thursday, after U.S. President Donald Trump called the North a nuclear power earlier this week. At his first appearance on the international stage since his return to the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking to the World Economic Forum, once again warned businesses around the world he would slap tariffs on them if they don't make their products in the U.S. The fourth hearing of President Yoon took place on Thursday, where he was accompanied by a key figure into the December 3rd martial law order. That is ex-defense chief Kim Yong-hyun, who shielded the troubled leader as a witness. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Tensions ran high as President Yoon's impeachment trial resumed, as former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun testified as the first witness, vehemently defending Yoon's martial law on December 3rd that shook the nation. The Constitutional Court on Thursday held the fourth trial hearing on Yoon's impeachment, which the president himself attended. The first of 10 witnesses approved by the court, Kim is one of the key figures implicated in planning and executing the martial law. Considered Yoon's right-hand man, Kim initially said he'd take responsibility for the chaos that ensued. His loyalty appeared intact. Kim at first refused to respond to the National Assembly's impeachment panel, prompting an abrupt break.
If I proceed with responding to the other side, there is a significant risk that the facts may be distorted. Therefore, I would like to now decline to take part in the witness questioning.
Questions fired by both the president's lawyers and the National Assembly. Much attention was on the planning and execution of martial law, as the National Assembly side says it disrupted the country's constitutional order and that a formal cabinet meeting was not held to legitimize it. First, regarding the legality of declaring martial law, the former defense minister said Yoon had kept to proper procedures of holding a cabinet meeting beforehand, saying that a copy of the martial law declaration was distributed to cabinet members. Also, Kim said he had composed the controversial note that the finance minister had received, ordering the preparation of a budget for an emergency legislative body, presumably to replace the elected National Assembly. This came after President Yoon initially said he could not remember whether he wrote the note, before recently denying that he had. Questions also focused on the martial law proclamation, which included a ban on political activities, one of the Assembly's grounds for impeaching Yoon. Kim claimed he typed up the document, but couldn't answer which word processor he used. As the president himself questioned his former minister, Yoon appeared to emphasize that he'd considered the martial law proclamation unrealistic and ineffective. The president also stated that his martial law had not failed, but ended quicker than expected, as he had ordered soldiers to withdraw once the National Assembly voted to lift the order. Through his testimony, Kim appeared to reinforce Yoon's position that martial law was declared to uphold the constitutional order, prompted by the opposition-led parliament's efforts to impeach incumbent officials and thwart effective governance and budget execution.
As the trial proceeds, the president plans to attend all future hearings scheduled till February 13th. This would allow him to directly question and challenge witnesses in the courtroom.
Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court says it has acquired investigation transcripts from individuals involved in the martial law incident. It has also secured classified documents related to the National Election Commission and agreed to call in an intelligence official related to the matter as a witness to the trial. This suggests the court will examine claims from Yoon's side that alleged election fraud was a major reason for declaring martial law. The Assembly's panel has objected to including election fraud suspicion in the trial.
Recklessly asserting baseless theories of election fraud appears to be an attempt to delay the proceedings and undermine trust in the electoral system. Such actions should be appropriately restrained.
The fifth hearing will be held after the Lunar New Year holiday on February 4th with 3 witnesses to testify. Seoul, Arirang News.
An investigation into President Yoon's martial law order is still ongoing, except the case will now be under the prosecutors, not the investigators. We have our Choi Min-jung out at the prosecution's office in central Seoul. Hello there, Min-jung.
Hi, Dami.
So, Min-jung, the prosecutors will now handle the investigation. Are you spotting anything at the site this morning?
Tammy, it's a little past 10 a.m. here at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office. And unlike what we've been seeing at the Seoul Detention Center and the CIO, it's still rather quiet with not many people around at the moment. Now, regarding the investigation, the prosecution does not have much time with a detention deadline approaching, which could be as early as the 26th of January. So the investigation team may request to extend President Yoon's detention as early as today. And if approved, that would mean he could be held until the 4th, 5th, or 6th of February, giving more time for the prosecutors to investigate. Under such a plan, the prosecution is expected to make every effort to interrogate President Yoon as much as possible. They have also set a plan to continue the investigation throughout the weekend, possibly at the Seoul Detention Center where Yoon is currently being held, and even during the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday.
Min-jung, and the point of this whole case transfer is so that President Yoon complies with the investigation. How is Yoon's side taking this handover?
Right. The question is whether Yoon will respond to the prosecution's investigation. President Yoon's legal team said nothing has been decided yet, but did urge the prosecution to comply with proper legal procedures, unlike what they call the illegal actions of the CIO. Just to give you a brief background, the prosecution's special investigation team took back the case yesterday after the anti-corruption agency formally requested that the prosecution take over the investigation. The case was handed over earlier than planned due to President Yoon's refusal to cooperate with the CIO. The CIO had faced backlash as the investigation continued to hit a stalemate. Other than on the day of his arrest, when he remained silent in front of his investigators, Yoon refused to appear for further questioning, citing health and security concerns. The CIO also faced repeated interference from the Presidential Security Service in its attempts to seize evidence.
Min-jung, last but not least, one of the men arrested for the attack against Seoul Western District Court last weekend turned out to be a missionary. He's been arrested as of Thursday, right?
That's right, Dami. A man in his 40s, identified as Mr. E, was arrested after being accused of storming into the court last Sunday after President Yoon was issued an arrest warrant. So as of today, a total of 59 people, including E, have been arrested in connection with the riot. And earlier, the court issued arrest warrants for 58 individuals, 44 for storming the court and causing property damage, and 10 for blocking a vehicle carrying prosecutors and investigators from the CIO. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more on our later newscast. Back to you, Dami.
Alrighty, Min-jung, thank you for your report. So the investigation of President Yoon's martial law order is now in the hands of prosecutors. Will things speed up for the better? We are joined by Professor Song Se-ryun this morning. Good to have you back with us, Professor Song.
Good morning.
So as our Choi Min-jung reported, the transfer of the case to the prosecution came earlier than expected. Does it mean the investigators have given up on Yoon?
Well, the CIO does not have the prosecutorial power, so it was not the matter of if. It's a question of when the case was referred. I think that, yes, the referring happened earlier than expected. Probably reflects the fact that the CIO was not really successful in questioning Yoon. They had only one occasion to question him, but Yoon was not really cooperative. They took the issue of the investigative jurisdiction of the CIO. So I think that this move is a strategic one for CIO because of their failure to advance the case too much. I think that the prosecutor's office have probably a better chance of questioning President Yoon because they have the power to conduct a follow-up investigation and related incidents investigation.
That is probably why the investigators decided to hand over the case to the prosecutors. Now, that the case is now under the prosecution, that what role can the CIO play in the investigation following the transfer? I mean, to what extent can they take part?
Well, once the case is referred to the prosecution for the prosecution, the CIO's role is limited, but not the end of it, probably, because the prosecutor's office could see that there is a gap in the investigation and bring back the CIO for further investigation. Of course, they can conduct it by themselves, but in terms of the investigation, CIO still can claim the investigative jurisdiction. But CIO can help in other ways because they can continue the investigation of other individuals, other incidents, so that the case will be built more stronger way for the prosecutor's effort to prosecute the case.
Well, I'm sure the prosecutors are putting their heads together to make sure that the investigation under them goes as successfully as possible. Now, the question is, how do you think the prosecution will approach questioning Yoon? I mean, what's the best option for the prosecutors?
Well, that is a good question. Remember, President Yoon used to be the prosecutor general, so they're investigating and prosecuting the boss.
Right.
There are two ways. I think that they can. The prosecutor's office could a little bit bend over backwards to show that they are capable of prosecuting this case, even with the history of the President Yoon before. I think that they can go for the prosecution of other individuals, build up the case, and help making the prosecution of Yoon more a stronger one. But I think that the interest is to see what kind of approach that the prosecutor's office has, and we'll probably know after the first meeting, first questioning of prosecutors, see if that goes any effectively than the CIO.
Then having the investigation passed to the prosecution, is this something that Yoon and his legal team pursued, do you think? I mean, is Yoon better off now that the prosecutors are carrying out the investigation, or not really? What do you think?
Well, the case was supposed to be referred to the prosecutor's office anyway, so I don't think it was they didn't have any clear preferences at this point. But regardless, I think the defense team, the President Yoon side, the strategy is to focus on the impeachment trial. Probably if they can get the presidency back to him, that will be a better occasion to deal with the insurrection case from the stance of a stronger situation. So I think that the fact that the president is attending all the sessions with the Constitutional Court probably shows that by making a successful political argument about getting the presidency back probably will be better for the insurrection trial anyway. So I think the defense team, as we have seen, has thrown all the wrenches in the works to delay the proceedings, so probably that reflects their strategy.
Well, the prosecutors might have a higher chance of conducting the investigation because the CIO's investigation was not so fruitful. Then how much, to what extent do you think Yoon's side will actually cooperate with the prosecution? To what extent?
Well, we just talked about the strategy. I think that the CIO's jurisdiction that they had questioned. Probably that's not there anymore. So I think the chances are that they are more cooperative with the prosecutor's office. But I think it all depends on their strategies. The defense team are allowed to make any plausible arguments for the defense, and their focus is to keep the president out of jail, out of a situation where he loses his presidency. So that's why we've seen a lot of delays, because delays are beneficial in many ways for insurrection trial, because they want to focus on the constitutional court side of it. In the constitutional court side of it, if the case is delayed until April, we have another difficulties of losing a couple of justices in the constitutional court. So I think that at this point, the focus from the President Yoon side is not to get to the truth, but the whole focus is on defense of the charges that he has, constitutional court and the insurrection charges. So if the delay is beneficial to that end, probably we'll see more of that.
Professor Song, thank you so much for joining with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week described North Korea as a nuclear power, sparking concerns of a change in Washington's North Korea policy. Seoul's top envoy to the U.S. tamed those worries by vowing to ensure that Seoul and Washington will maintain the goal of North Korea's denuclearization. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
South Korea's ambassador to the United States, Cho Hyun-dong, said Thursday that Seoul and Washington will maintain the goal of North Korea's denuclearization in the new Donald Trump administration. In a monthly press meeting, Seoul's top envoy to Washington emphasized South Korea's focus on reinforcing policy coordination with the Trump administration. In order to remain on the same page on North Korean nuclear policy, Cho said the South Korean government will strengthen its coordination with the U.S., especially given the North's participation in the war in Ukraine. The ambassador also stressed Seoul's priority of strengthening the credibility of the U.S.'s extended deterrence commitment. This includes the mobilization of the full range of its military capabilities, including nuclear weapons, in order to defend South Korea. Cho added that Seoul will continue to ensure the combined South Korea-U.S. defense posture while maintaining the Seoul-Washington-Tokyo trilateral cooperation. His comments come amid growing concerns that the U.S. may be changing its policy on North Korea's nuclear program. On the day of his inauguration on Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump described North Korea as a nuclear power. Also, Trump's defense chief nominee Pete Hegseth used the same term to describe the regime. U.S. officials have long refrained from using such terms, as it could be seen as Washington's recognition of North Korea's nuclear weapons program. However, the term is different from the nuclear weapon states often used to describe countries like the U.S., UK, France, Russia, and China. They're officially recognized as countries that possess nuclear weapons in the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Speaking at his first major global address, U.S. President Donald Trump renewed his economic agenda, urging global companies to manufacture in his country, the U.S. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth.
U.S. President Donald Trump emphasized his stance on tariffs once again in front of the global elite at the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, as he followed up his push to bring manufacturing into the U.S. with a threat to impose levies for foreign goods.
But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
Speaking in a video call on Thursday at his first major appearance since his inauguration earlier this week, Trump went on to describe how these tariffs will add up to trillions of dollars to strengthen the U.S. economy. This follows an earlier announcement that he plans to impose tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada starting February, alongside a 10% tariff for China. During the rest of his 45-minute speech, he went on to lay out more of his vision for the U.S. economy, which includes lowering the corporate tax to 15% from the current 21%, lowering energy costs by pressuring OPEC, and lowering interest rates in turn. And in a panel discussion following his speech, he addressed the European Union for its substantial trade imbalance with the United States and condemned their regulatory actions against American tech giants such as Apple, Google, and Facebook. His comments spurred a chain of reactions. Oil prices fell, the greenback showed fluctuations, and U.S. stocks rose. It also inspired commentary from attendees, who called for a measured response to Trump's tariff policies, cautioning against hasty retaliatory actions. The Director General of the World Trade Organization called for careful analysis to examine the economic impact to gauge whether they are excessive, and warned that retaliatory tariffs can have disastrous effects on the global economy. The European Union's Economic Commissioner echoed this sentiment, while some attendees showed a more nuanced understanding of Trump's approach to tariffs by viewing it as a bargaining tool. Trump also advocated for a reduction in nuclear arms and urged for global cooperation at the forum, stating that he had discussed the matter with Russian President Vladimir Putin prior to the 2020 U.S. presidential election. He revealed that Putin had been receptive to the idea of nuclear disarmament and that China would have joined the initiative, warning that Beijing is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and could catch up with the U.S. in a few years. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The proportion of renewable energy in total electricity production in the European Union reached an all-time high last year. According to a London-based think tank Amber on Thursday, renewable energy production, including solar, wind, and hydropower last year in the European bloc, reached 1,300 terawatt-hours, accounting for 47.4% of the total electricity production. Now, the figure is an increase of 7.6% from the previous year. Meanwhile, the proportion of fossil fuels such as coal and gas used in EU electricity production stood at 28.9%. That's the lowest in 40 years.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in the U.S. on Thursday, District Judge John Coffiner in Seattle put a 2-week temporary halt on President Donald Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. Trump's order sought to deny citizenship to children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents. The order challenges the 14th Amendment, which grants citizenship to anyone born in America, with a few minor exceptions. 22 states and several immigrant right groups are challenging Trump's executive order, arguing that it would strip many individuals of their right to citizenship. The Justice Department plans to appeal Judge Coffiner's decision, asserting that the order correctly interprets the Constitution. The case, which represents an early setback for the Trump administration's immigration agenda, could potentially end up at the Supreme Court for a final decision. Also in the U.S., Purdue Pharma and its owners, the Sackler family, on Thursday agreed to a $7.4 billion settlement to resolve numerous lawsuits alleging their role in the U.S. opioid crisis through the marketing of their product OyContin. Under the settlement terms, the Sacklers will pay $6.5 billion over 15 years and give up their ownership of Purdue Pharma. An additional $900 million will come from Purdue itself. The agreement follows the U.S. Supreme Court's rejection of a $6 billion settlement that would have granted the Sacklers immunity from future civil lawsuits. The new settlement does not provide such immunity. The OyContin crisis led to hundreds of thousands of deaths and addictions in the U.S. since the drug's release in 1996. The Sackler family continues to deny any wrongdoing. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning announced on Thursday that recent tests of seawater samples collected near Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant revealed no abnormalities. The first independent test of samples since October 2024 was conducted as part of an agreement between China and Japan, following stakeholders to perform independent sampling and monitoring during the framework of the International Atomic Energy Agency. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson noted the limits of the significance of a single test result, and China has not yet hinted at lifting its ban on Japanese seafood imports, which was imposed in August 2023. Finally, to Australia, where Sydney's Royal Botanic Gardens saw the blooming of a corpse flower, or Patricia, for the first time in 15 years on Thursday. The rare flower, which is native to Sumatra, Indonesia, is known for its pungent odor, often compared to rotting flesh. The occasion attracted over 20,000 visitors, as the flower's bloom is a significant event due to its rarity and brief 24-hour lifespan. Visitors endured lines exceeding 2 hours to witness the rare spectacle, and some described the scent as being like a dead animal.
Yesterday's improved air quality was much appreciated. We should have normal air quality today, except for some of the central regions, including here in Seoul, with morning dust. Then a mix of snow and rain is in the forecast for East Coast regions, which should help to ease the dryness in the air. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province, however, will see heavier snowfall of up to 15 centimeters into Saturday. But early spring warmth continues this afternoon with a high of 9 degrees in the capital, Daegu and Gwangju at 12 degrees. Under sunny skies expected in most parts. Now, traffic has been much heavier this week. In Korea, it's common that before a holiday, people visit their business partners and clients to hand out gifts, exchange gifts, and wish them a Happy New Year. Warmer temperatures continue over the weekend, but those traveling on the East Coast need to drive with care. And there's nationwide wintry precipitation in the forecast early next week, and that will bring freezing air back to the country over Seollal holiday week. So please plan accordingly for travel.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. A new day at Arirang will be back next Friday after the Lunar New Year Seollal holidays. Thanks for watching.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts, or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shib, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Galbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait. Did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
Step into a world where culture speaks beyond words, bridging hearts and minds. Hello, this is your DJ Soo Jung for Culture Crunch. Crunch on a new flavor of K-culture with me every day.
무섭고 도망치고 싶다. 그를 잡지 못하면 난 무언가 아예 무릎을 꿇어버리고 모든 것을 포기할까. 오케이.
고무장갑 다 똑같다고? 아니, 러버랩은 달라. 내 손인 듯 하루 종일 편하게. 슬림한 두께로 낀 듯 안 낀 듯 가볍게. 튼튼하니까 걱정 없이. 두 가지 길이로 다양하게 쓰는 러버랩으로 만드는 편리한 일상. 껴보면 달라. 러버랩 고무장갑. 러버랩.
We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Friday, January 24th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Lee Won-bin.
Good morning.
Good morning, and Brooke Prince.
Hello, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So the Seollal, or Korean Lunar New Year holiday, starts tomorrow. That is if you include the weekend. And this year we have a 6-day holiday, including the weekend, once again, making it one of the longest Seollal holidays in recent years. So with so much time off, many people are very excited to hit the roads for family visits or to travel. So starting off, I would like to ask our panelists, what are your plans for this long holiday?
Well, first of all, visiting my families, obviously. Both of my families are actually Buddhist, which means that we must prepare the 차례상, which is like a ceremonial meal that we prepare for our ancestors on the day of the Lunar New Year. And because all the family gathers up, it is also a really good day for families to kind of catch up with each other.
Reunite.
And, yes, reunite. And it's considered as a general culture in Korea on Seollal for people to talk with each other. And one of the hottest topics is how good the young youngest family members, aka the children, are doing. And luckily and unluckily, I am the oldest son, 장남, and this means that it gives me a lot of responsibility, and they have a lot of expectations for me. And oh, excuse me. And which puts a lot of weight on my shoulder, and everybody asks about my job, my plan, my love life, and to most MZ generations.
A lot of questions.
Yes, this is a lot of questions, and most of them find it a little bit uncomfortable. But however, for me, it is not, because I'm on TV and news generation Arirang, which makes my family members very proud.
Oh,
we're very proud of you too.
Yeah, well, we're proud of you.
Thank you.
You've joined the Newsden family, so good for you and good for Wonbin's family. Now, Brooke, before we went on air, we talked about how this is your 8th Seollal holiday that you're celebrating here in Korea.
That is right. And even though I am quite a bit older than Wonbin here, I still get the same questions whenever it's a family holiday. Just recently, I went to America for Thanksgiving, and I was definitely asked about all of those things. But as a foreigner living here in Korea, I really love learning about the traditions of Lunar New Year. But obviously, it's not something that I celebrate the same way. For me, it is some much-deserved time off, and I plan to spend it with some friends. I have a very special friend who is visiting she's visiting from the US right now, and she was actually my double cast in the musical Il Tenore.
Really?
So she is here to celebrate with the cast because we recently won some awards at the Korea Musical Awards, which was amazing.
Right.
And several of my castmates are currently in other productions, so we are going on a musical tour during the next week and a half or so. So I plan to spend my Seollal holiday kind of doing a tour of the Korean arts and theater scene, which is one of my favorite things about Korean culture and society. I'm really looking forward to it.
What an exciting way to spend the long holiday.
Yes.
And please share your experience.
I certainly will. I'll give all my reviews.
So Wonbin is going to spend some family time during the Seollal holiday, and Brooke is going on a musical watching tour.
Yes.
Right. And for those who are traveling during this holiday domestically, most choose to go by car, and naturally this makes travel time during this period much longer than usual. And one thing that makes road trips enjoyable for many here in Korea is the highway rest stops, which we kind of mentioned last year on NewsGen. They've become a must-visit destination for a lot of drivers and those who are hitting the road. So could you first tell us a bit more about these places, Wonbin?
Absolutely, I can. And now to begin with, I think we should clear out some background information on why a car is the most preferred vehicle of traveling during Seoul. And most seniors live outside of the capital city, Seoul, and it is obviously very difficult to find plane or train tickets during this time.
Right.
And that is if they have a train station or an airport nearby. And on top of that, the entire family members are traveling together, which means the cost of moving by train and planes will be multiplied as well. Therefore, most people use cars. And now that we have that cleared, I can safely assume that everybody will understand that there will be a massive traffic jam during the Seollal holidays.
Right.
And when you need to be in a car for a long time, you can't not talk about 휴게소, which is our main topic of the day. And since the long drive is exhausting not only for the drivers, but the passengers as well, 휴게소 is considered as like a safe haven to them where they're on the road. And you can stop by there and get a quick break, use the washroom, get some good foods and snacks, which is actually a big part of the identity of 휴게소. Overall, these facilities are also very well built and maintained, which is why people love to stop by them.
Right. They have definitely become favorite stops to visit when people travel during the holidays or whenever they are taking long drives to other regions around the country. Then, Brooke, I would like to ask you, are there similar areas in the United States, and how do you think they compare to the ones here in Korea?
Yes, there are. I did a lot of driving when I was in the United States, including some coast-to-coast road trips, which is a very long trip.
Right.
And so I stopped at many of these places, and they kind of come in all shapes and sizes in the U.S. Some have just a gas station. Some have more amenities, like many fast food places that you can stop by and get something to eat. But they do kind of have a reputation for being potentially unsafe places, particularly in rural areas that are not so populated. They can feel feel a little spooky because they're kind of deserted. And I think the reason why that is because America is very large.
Right.
And so you have to have a lot of rest stops in order to service that huge of a population, which means that some of them are going to be a bit smaller. They're basically just the bare bones, the basics. They're all about practicality. Whereas in Korea, these rest stops are essentially a tourist attraction in and of themselves. They have these amazing, architectural aesthetics. They can be very futuristic, almost like a sci-fi film, which draws drivers in. They have a bunch of novel amenities, like they have mini golf, which was amazing to me. Mini golf, pet-friendly areas, activities for children, and also they have media art facilities as well. There's one called the Starlight Garden, or Uju. It's at the Tokpyeong Eco Service area in Incheon, and it's like a date spot, which you would never think of a rest stop as a date spot, but it's this beautiful illuminated garden. If you look at pictures, it's just incredible. So I think Korea is really trying to move away from the idea of service areas being just a place to briefly stop by and actually being an entertainment destination in their own right.
I mean, I think you put it in the perfect way. They're no longer just service areas where you can use the bathroom or buy food, but they've sort of become cultural landmarks over the years. Then so far we focused and we've given you a brief historical background and context of these highway rest stops in Korea. Then I would like to ask you, I think this is quite like an obvious question, but did you have a chance to visit any highway rest stops area in Korea? And if you did, what was the best part about your experience?
Okay, so first of all, I obviously have visited. And it's important to note that, like I said, the 휴게소s in Korea are very, very well built. It's like they're almost tailored.
Right.
Especially the bathroom. Now, first of all, it's obviously free, and it's huge. A lot of people come and go. So they have minimum of 20 slots, and if not more, with electric heated bidets, main displays at the entrance to show which slots are available.
You're seeing it right now on the screen.
The jet-powered drying machines and big mirrors to check yourself before leaving, and the list goes on and on and on. And once you are relieved from the amazing tailored bathroom, there are often great natural sceneries welcoming you. They have outdoor benches, or sometimes even like photo spots where you can take a picture and make a memory at the 휴게소. And nowadays you can even see like trendy cultures such as pop-up stores, which is these promotional stores that appear for only about a week or so, and automatic serving robots as well, which shows how popular the 휴게소s are in Korea.
Wow, so from high-quality bathrooms to automatic serving robots, these highway rest stops are offering quite a lot to customers and users. But Brooke, I think we must talk about the food that we can buy at these areas, right? Please tell us more.
Of course. As a foodie, that is my favorite part of these rest stops.
For me too as well.
They're like, they are a foodie's paradise. They have a very unique culinary experience that features local specialties. So for example, if you go to Icheon Rest area, then you can have dishes that include Icheon rice, which is known for being very rich and chewy. Or if you go to Hwaengsong, the Hwaengsong Rest area features meals that include their famous Hwaengsong beef. It's known for being marbled, rich, and tender, and they will include it in dishes like bulgogi, beef skewers, or stews. I'm making myself hungry to talk about this. But beyond just regional specialties, you can also get many of the Korean staples, the classics, like my personal favorite, hodok, which is a crispy pancake that has a sweet filling. You can also get tteokbokki, sodok, anything with tok I just love, right? Rice cakes, that's what it's all about. You can also get mandu, or dumplings, and you should not forget about ramyeon. Korean ramyeon is delicious, and a piping hot bowl of ramyeon in the middle of your drive, specifically during winter, which is the season we're in right now. It's just an amazing way to stop and refill yourself before you go on the rest of your journey. So I hope that you do stop by and get to try out some of those dishes.
Definitely. So right now, we focused on the highway rest stop areas here in Korea. We're going to expand our discussion and learn about the rest stop cultures in other parts of the world. We asked our viewers beforehand to share what these areas are like in their countries. And here's what 3 of them had to say. Our first comment for this Friday is by Mr. Fan09. In Indonesia, rest stops feature restaurants, convenience stores, gas stations, and mosques for praying. The unique thing is there are also car workshops in case something's wrong with our car engine or tire. Second comment for the day, studio visionary Anna. In Arizona, highway rest stops aren't much. There is a bathroom for men and a bathroom for women. There is usually a changing table for mothers to change their children's diapers. These rest stops are mostly kept clean. Little VT55 says there are two types of highway rest stops in France, ones that have patrol, shops, sometimes restaurants and restrooms, and ones that have very basic toilets and picnic areas. Usually the ones with patrol have slightly better restrooms. All right, so coming up next, we'll speak live with a young person from the United States who has first-hand experience with Korea's highway rest stops. Stay tuned.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Welcome back. Joining us this Friday morning is Jotsia Jean, a Gen Z from the United States. Welcome to the show, Jotsia.
I am happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, Jotsia, we would first like to ask you, which highway rest stop in Korea did you visit and what brought you there?
Yeah, so the first rest stop I ever visited was the Yongin service area, and that was on a bus ride to Gwangju. I was going to visit one of my friends, and I realized that the Gosok buses were the cheapest option, so I decided to try it out. I was a little nervous at first since I've never really been on some kind of like road trip with a bunch of strangers in a bus before in the United States, but you know, I figured it would be a good cultural experience in Korea, and I ended up really liking it because the seats were a lot more comfortable than I expected. It was just overall really convenient, and the rest stops were probably my favorite part.
I see. Now, Jotsia, what impressed you the most about the Korean highway rest stops that you visited, and why?
Yeah, so I've been to a lot of 휴게소s, and I think a lot of them are pretty similar, and they've all impressed me in the same way, because they're pretty different from American ones. They have the same basic amenities, but there's a lot more variety there. So the thing that shocked me the most was probably the outdoor concession stands that they have. So like you mentioned earlier, there's street food that they sell, and it's amazing because they really hit when you've been sitting in the car for 3 hours and you just really want some Korean street food like Korean hot dog or sotok. But it was just really surprising that so much of it was outdoors because that's not really a thing in American rest stops. And it was really interesting to me because one time I visited a rest stop in a rainstorm and we were just sitting there able to see all of the storm happening, only protected by a plastic tent that surrounded the building. And the other thing that really surprised me was the fact that so much of it is automated. I guess the fact that it's outside helps with people who are like me, who are riding express buses, since the buses only stop for 15 minutes at a time. So when you go to these stalls, the food is already pre-made, and then they have like kiosks, which are the automated part. So it's a really fast process because you order at the kiosk and then you just go find your stall and quickly grab the food whenever you show them the receipt. The only thing is these kiosks can be a little bit confusing if you're not used to it, since I multiple times have ordered from the kiosk and accidentally ordered from a booth that was on the other side of the rest stop, and I worried I wouldn't be able to get back to my bus in time since I was running around lost. But other than that, it's a really convenient process.
Well, I'm glad you had such a... Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm glad I found the bus.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a great experience in Korea. I wanted to ask you, as a fellow American, I already talked about this a bit earlier, but they can differ in America, right, depending on where you're from. So do you have similar areas in your area where you're from? And can you expand upon what you mentioned earlier about how they differ from American rest stops?
Yeah, definitely. So I think another thing that shocked me, because I usually come on the buses, I never really noticed the indoor parts with the full restaurants in Korea. So just like in America, the Korean rest stops also have an indoor part where they have actual meals. But compared to America, I think there's more actual food. So as an American going there, I felt like I was getting a true taste of Korea by ordering from these places. They even had like rice cake shops and some of the more traditional Korean foods. So although I didn't really have time to eat those since I only had a 15-minute break, it was really fascinating to see that since in the States, I think it's mainly just fast food or convenience stores. And then another fascinating thing that was really shocking to me was the bathrooms. So the rest stops in America are very average Western-style bathrooms with just toilets. And then in Korea, all the rest stops have Western-style toilets, squat toilets. And then some of the stalls even have this fancy button that'll make a flushing sound effect, which I've never seen before coming to Korea. So I think coming to these rest stops and seeing all these new things have been like a bit of a like cultural experience for me, since I've never seen rest stops be so much of like a big thing.
It's wonderful that you had a great experience visiting these highway rest stops here in Korea. Jotsia, anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye to you?
Just that I'm really excited to go on more road trips around Korea and to keep seeing what else gets added to these rest stops, since I know that it is definitely a tourist attraction. I've seen even photo zones and those outdoor areas that you mentioned earlier. So I'd like to see that in real life.
All right, Jotsia, thank you so
me.
much. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, and hope you have a lovely weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so as mentioned earlier, the long Seollal holiday is just around the corner. So before we wrap up, do you have anything you'd like to say, like a message or words for our viewers who are celebrating the Seollal holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. So before anything, please drive carefully and drive safely. You're going to be on the road for a minimum of hours, so driving carefully and avoiding accident is the biggest priority. And there's that's the number one thing that I would like to assure everyone. And for the younger people watching our news gen, don't take the Seollal questions too seriously. It's just think that it's like the adults' method of showing love and care.
Showing that they really care for you, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you only see them like a few times a year. So, just go out there, meet them, and have fun and enjoy your time. And there's one thing that I want to add, because we had a lot of discussions about the food at the Hugyeso. A menu that wasn't mentioned that I'd like to give an honorable mention is 통감자, which is like steamed whole potatoes.
Right. They're the best.
Yeah, it's like a staple for all Koreans at various age ranges. So if you do go to Hugyeso, make sure to try the 통감자 as well.
Right, so the roasted potatoes and also what Brooke mentioned, the hotdog pancakes and also so떡, which is like a skewer that's consisted of sausage and rice cakes as well. Then what do you want to say to our viewers, Brooke?
Well, it's funny, we talked a little bit about the questions that family members asked, and I read that a company is putting out a nagging t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like a menu, and it has prices that if you ask this question, this is what you have to pay. So for example, if you ask for about marriage or love life, then you have to pay, 30,000 won or something like that. So I thought that was quite a funny way to sort of handle that nagging that you get during family vacations. But like Wonbin said, the most important thing is it's how they show love. And so you want to just have fun when you're visiting your family. And of course, if you are traveling, please travel safely. I hope you have a nice home-cooked, warm, delicious meal for your Lunar New Year, and that you start this year off with a lot of positivity. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Right, Happy New Year. And on behalf of all of us here at News Generation, we wish you a warm, happy, and safe holiday with all your loved ones. And that's all from us today, but Newsden will be back next Friday, January 31st at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. We're taking 4 days off next week as it's once again the Seollal holiday. Special thanks to Iwonbit.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And Brooke Prince.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and hope you have a great weekend and Seollal holiday. We are
News Generation.